Hi everyone, welcome to day 6 of our क्लाउड एंड डेवऑप्स लर्निंग सीरीज। आज हम डेवऑप्स के सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट टॉपिक पे बात करने वाले हैं, डेवऑप्स टूल्स ओवरव्यू। सो डेवऑप्स इक्वल टू टूल्स प्लस प्रोसेसेस प्लस कल्चर। और टूल्स को समझना बहुत जरूरी है बिकॉज एवरी डेवऑप्स जॉब एक्सपेक्ट्स टूल नॉलेज। सो इन दिस वीडियो I am going to try to demystify these tools by walking you through a story of how you start with a small application where don't really need to a large infrastructure, but as you expand, how each of these tools come in a different stages of your product to help with the different challenges you face. This is high level of overview of how all of these fit in your infrastructure as well as your development workflows. And I am sure by the end of this video, you will learn with good understanding of where this fits. So start within the idea and you have this idea that you think is going to change the world. So you are going to build a website that is, for example, तो इसके लिए this is the example or this is the story. So you are going to build a website that books the ticket to Mars or any planet in advance so people don't have to pay too much or wait in a queue in the future. So what you do, as any other intelligent developer will do, you get start with the market research first. Oh, I am wrong. Any intelligent developer, do you get coding? You open your favorite editor like VS Code or any PyCharm for Python like that. So start building your idea, and hours later you have the first version of your product ready. So it's time to share it with the world. Now, how would you do that? This code is still running on your laptop and it's only accessible at HTTP localhost 8084 now. So even if you find a way to share it's the world from your laptop, when you shut down your laptop, no one would have access to it. So you need to host your application on system that never turn off. So you identify a server that is either a physical server in data center or virtual machine. So it's the helpful to build our application like in a data center or in the cloud. You copy the code to it and you run it. So now you can't just run on application on system by just copying code to it. You need to have a system configuration first to able to run it. For example, if the application was written in Python or Java or other programming languages, then you must have one of these programming language on the runtimes in the place of the server. If application uses any libraries or packages, then you must have those exact version of library and packages configured on the server too in the exact same way. Now you develop your application on your laptop, so that becomes your dev environment and the server or your host, your application becomes your production environment. So now once all that is set up, you now have your application running on the server. The server has an IP address or any domain. You don't want to have to share IP address to people. So you purchase a domain name and map that to your server. So now you have something to share to the world. You are all set and you are now ready to share it with the world. And your website is now famous and you now have thousands of users visiting your site booking with their tickets. Okay, so now let's look at our workflow as of now. The current workflow involves the development phase where you write your code on your laptop. This could be on your favorite text editor like Wise Code or PyCharm. So now the code in a text format is not good enough to run it as an application by the end user. So it need to be in executable format. If you are familiar with Windows or binary file, if you if you are familiar with Linux, or converting code from a text format to the binary or executable format is known as a building the code. And there are tools available such as Python setup tools or Maven or Gradle for the platforms, and you usually have a build script that involves the tools to build the application. So for like that, there is a this is a code file. Okay, this is a code.py file. So first here, first is a develop, then build, then deploy. Deploy. Okay, this is the phase of any application. First is the develop, second build, then deploy. So you usually have build a script that involves these tools to build the application. Now once build, the executable is moved to the production environment. In this case, our server, and run in production, and that's referred to as a deploy stage. A simple three steps process. So there are so many variations to the process and different ways and tools used to do this, but I'm keeping it super high level for you now. So now you have users now visiting your website, and users are requesting for more features. So you bring in your friends along us, additional developers, and now everyone is working on their our own development environment on the same code base, and the working on the same files at the same time and creating conflicts. So there is a solution for that, Git. So this is example, but I have to explain the tools as well to you. So okay, the first is a Git. So Git helps all the developers. This is a Git, this official logo of Git. So Git helps all developers to work on the same application at the same time and collaborate efficiently. Now everyone installs and configure Git on their machine, and that's going to help in easily pulling that latest Git code from the central hub using the get pull command. That is the git pull command. Use code from the central hub using get pull command and add their own changes and push it back using the get push command. There is a push, get push. Okay, so Git is a underlying technology, and GitHub is a publicly hosted Git-based central repo of your code, where you can configure project organization, users, and define different access for different users. So, and some other similar platforms are GitLab and Bitbucket. So, in market, there is a GitLab, Gitbucket. Sorry, it's not a Gitbucket; it is Bitbucket, and multiple applications. So to summarize, Git is the command line tool or underlying technology that enables versioning of code and collaboration between multiple developers. And GitHub is the Git-based publicly accessible repo. GitHub क्या है? It is the publicly accessible repo of your code. When you push your code, and it has a web interface where you invite new developers to manage your project, manage issues with your projects, and add document to your code. This is the GitHub. this one. So also we need to test in the test your our code to the test environment. So now pushing new builds to the production, it is risky. For that, the manual jobs and require set of manual tasks. You decide to move con all new code to the container, new features, so to production environment once a week. However, that not will be accepted by users or by your fellow developers because some of the minor features are ready and don't necessarily have to wait till the end of the week to be pushed to the production. An entire process of manual deployment itself takes a week to execute on its own when the code base and features grow. You want to be able to release features faster and move more frequently with less manual effort. And that's why CI/CD tools comes in a picture. So that's the where is the CI/CD came. So now CI/CD stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment, and tools like Jenkins, this one, Jenkins, GitHub Action or GitLab CI/CD help you to automate these manual tasks and build the pipeline with one of these tools configured. Now with the GitHub and CI/CD pipeline in place, we have enabled our team to make changes on our application and get them to the production server seamlessly. So why containers comes in a picture? So containers. तो containers मोस्टली क्या होता है? इसमें डिपेंडेंसीज एंड लाइब्रेरीज होते हैं जो मोस्टली that we talked about earlier, the ones that are required to for the application to run on any system, these dependencies need to be configured to the exact same way to the server. And this means that if a new package is required, this need to be manually installed and configured. So on all servers that this code runs and now is still manual task if you miss any dependencies that lead to be software not working and resulting in unexpected outcomes on differences system. So, and that's where containers comes in. So, what is container? So, container helps package the application and its dependencies into an image that can be run on any system without worrying about dependencies. So now during the build, your build container image with the application and its dependencies package into it, and all other systems can now simply run a container from that image without worrying about that installing and configuring libraries and dependencies. This is the container. तो मोस्टली कंटेनर्स क्या होता है कंटेनर्स में ऑल द पैकेजेस डिपेंडेंसीज लाइब्रेरीज इंक्लूड होती है तो अभी डॉकर आएगा तो डॉकर मोस्टली क्या होता है इट्स अ टेक्नोलॉजी दैट एनेबल वर्किंग विद कंटेनर्स इट्स डॉकर विद डॉकर the developer can create a docker file which specifies what the dependencies are and docker file can use during build to an image and that image can be run on any server using the simple docker run command functionality of container so इसमें container की functionality क्या होती है it enables isolation between processes so each container is an isolated instance and this allows us to run multiple containers each having its own separate instance of the application on the same server so the functionality of container तो आपको इंटरव्यू में पूछा जाएगा व्हाट इज कंटेनर व्हाट इज द फंक्शनलिटी ऑफ कंटेनर तो आपको बताना पड़ेगा इट enables isolation between processes so each container is an isolated instance and this allows us to run multiple containers each having its own separate instance of the application on the same server so नेक्स्ट देखेंगे कुबरनेटिस दिस वन तो कुबरनेटिस का क्या रोल है On the production having more servers, now that we have containers, all we need to do is run containers on them. The containers are spun up when user is increased and destroyed when load reduces. So how do you ensure if container fails, it is automatically brought back up? तो हमें बैकअप तो चाहिए. That's where container orchestration platform comes in the picture. It's simply known as the CAT, like that. It is a popular container orchestration platform. ये क्या है? Orchestration platform, container orchestration platform. ये Kubernetes. So that helps declare how containers should be deployed and ensure that it is always run in the same way as a declared. So it can help auto scale container as well as underlying infrastructure based on your needs and manage. Then GitHub repo का क्या role है? Now we have developers pushing code to the central GitHub repo. The pipeline then pulls the code to the build server. It builds it to the Docker image, and then that image is used to test in the application in the test environment, and finally deployed in production environment as a containers by Kubernetes. So Terraform, अब हम Terraform देखेंगे. Terraform का क्या वर्किंग है? So Terraform, its big challenge is provision the infrastructure. आपको इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इन द प्रोविजन वे एंड कॉन्फ़िगरेशन वे में चाहिए, तो हम टेराफ्रॉम यूज करते हैं. It resulting in having to rebuild the entire server to automate the provisioning of these servers. Tools like Terraform can be used. The Terraform automates the provisioning and configuration of server irrespective of what cloud platforms they are on. It ensures that the server configured are always in the same state. So the Terraform manifest file that has a list of the server and the configuration, it containing a code. It's look like code, that's why it called as infrastructure as a code. तो इसमें क्या होता है, Terraform में फाइल होती है main.tf फाइल. ओके, तो इसका यूज क्या है? तो फॉर एग्जांपल लेते हैं. ओके, दिस इज अ कोड ऑफ main.tf फाइल. तो हम ये लाइन बाय लाइन देखेंगे. तो टेराफॉर्म में एक कोड है फॉर एग्जांपल. तो इसमें ये पार्ट है जो स्टार्टिंग ऑफ द लाइन है, जो ए वाला. तो इसमें क्या है? प्रोवाइडर AWS रीजन यूएस ईस्ट 1. तो इसका मतलब क्या है? प्रोवाइडर AWS मीन्स दिस ब्लॉक टेल्स टेराफॉर्म वी आर यूजिंग AWS एज अवर क्लाउड प्रोवाइडर. Inside this block we normally configure authentication and region. So देखो इधर रीजन भी है, जो कि रीजन इस एग्जांपल में क्या है? यूएस ईस्ट 1. So sets AWS region where all resources will be created. तो जो सेकंड ब्लॉक है, दैट्स द टेराफॉर्म, दिस वन. तो इसमें क्या है? टेराफॉर्म बैकएंड S3. So this tells Terraform to store the Terraform state file in an S3 bucket of the locally. So bucket equal to current backend state. The name of the S3 bucket where the state file will be saved, and the region is the US East 1. So the S3 buckets, it is the S3 bucket region location. Okay. Then third, resource block, that is a हम कह सकते हैं AWS इंस्टेंस रिसोर्स, जो कि दिस ब्लॉक क्रिएट्स एन EC2 इंस्टेंस ऑन AWS, जो कि ये वाला। So these blocks create EC2 instance on AWS. Remote state file is just the name we give this resource in Terraform. Then AMI equal to, this is the AMI ID. It defines which OS image the EC2 instance will use. Then instance underscore type equal to T2.micro. It defines the size of the EC2 instance. It is a free tier eligible, so it is a T2.micro. The next tags है, तो tags में name equal to Terraform state file. It, so इसका क्या, इसका मतलब क्या है? It adds a tag to the EC2 instance, and tag name helps identify the instance in AWS. This is all of Terraform. तो नेक्स्ट हम Ansible देखेंगे, जो कि ये this one. So while Terraform is more of an infrastructure provisioning tool, so Ansible is an automation tool. ये क्या है? इस इसमें प्लेबुक होती है, जो कि यामल लैंग्वेज में लिखी जाती है, प्लेबुक डॉट यामल। तो क्या है? ऑटोमेशन टूल है, ऑटोमेशन टूल बोल सकते हैं हम इसको, जो कि हेल्प्स टू कॉन्फ़िगर दिस इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर वंस प्रोविजन। Note that there are many areas, both Terraform and Ansible overlap, but it has its own benefits and in different areas. So while Terraform is used mostly for provisioning and provisioning infrastructure, so Ansible is used for post configuration activities. तो किस में यूज होता है? मोस्टली पोस्ट कॉन्फ़िगरेशन एक्टिविटीज में यूज होता है। पोस्ट कॉन्फ़िगरेशन एक्टिविटीज। तो पोस्ट कॉन्फ़िगरेशन एक्टिविटीज क्या है? सच एज इंस्टॉलिंग द सॉफ्टवेयर and configuration them on those servers. So similar to Terraform, it is a similar to Terraform. Ansible uses the code to configure server. It's called Ansible playbook. Ansible playbook. And this code also goes to the source code repo on the GitHub. तो फॉर एग्जांपल हमने ये देखा, अब हम एक Ansible एग्जांपल Ansible देखते हैं। Ansible का एग्जांपल मैंने ले रखा है, तो ओके। So this is a simple code, that is a playbook.yaml file, ansible.yaml file. तो इसमें नेम है, होस्ट है, जो कि हम टास्क असाइन कर सकते हैं यूजिंग एंसिबल प्लेबुक। तो फर्स्ट क्या है? नेम, जो कि इंस्टॉल httpd यूजिंग एंसिबल प्लेबुक। ये सिंपल एग्जांपल है, जो कि हम बिगिनर लेवल पे देख रहे हैं, तो मैंने सोचा कि सिंपल एग्जांपल एक्सप्लेन करते हैं, जो आपको अच्छे से समझ में आएगा। सो दिस इज द टाइटल ऑफ द प्लेबुक। इट टेल्स व्हाट द प्लेबुक विल डू। सो प्लेबुक क्या करेगा? इंस्टॉल httpd, it is the service using the ansible playbook. So first is a host slave1। इसका मतलब क्या है? This playbook will run on the server or a group called slave1। ये सर्वर और ग्रुप कह सकते हैं इसको, slave1 को। So become equal to true, it gives the sudo root privileges to run the task। जो हम ansible पढ़ेंगे हम, तो डिपेंड में डीपली स्टडी करेंगे इसका। तो अभी देखो, देन नेक्स्ट आता है टास्क। तो टास्क सेक्शन में क्या है? टास्क सेक्शन में नेम है, पैकेज है। ओके। सो आप बोलेंगे ये कोड इस फॉर्मेट में क्यों लिखा है? ये YAML फॉर्मेट है, दिस वन। सो पैकेज में क्या है? यूज द पैकेज मॉड्यूल टू मैनेज द सॉफ्टवेयर। नेम सर्विस कौन सी है? HTTPD। इट इंस्टॉल द HTTPD Apache वेब सर्वर पैकेज। देन स्टेट इज द प्रेजेंट स्टेट। देन थर्ड इज द नेम। नेक्स्ट नेम इज द start HTTPD service. Okay. So name HTTPD, state started, alias. So it defines the service to start. You start the HTTPD service, and enabled is a yes. It ensure HTTPD starts automatically on reboot. This is all explanation. तो जो इसके टास्क में दो टास्क है, इंस्टॉल HTTPD पैकेज ऑन द सर्वर एंड देन स्टार्ट HTTPD सर्विस। ओके। ये तो एग्जांपल एंसिबल प्लेबुक का। सो लास्ट में आता है नाउ। हमने प्रोविजन देगा, कॉन्फ़िगरेशन देगा, कैसे कर सकते हैं हम ये इन main.tf इन टेराफॉर्म में। तो वो हम देखेंगे प्रोमेथस। सो नाउ प्रोविजनिंग इज नॉट ऑल, वी नाउ वांट टू मेंटेन इट एज वेल। So we want to be able to monitor this server and take preventive measures. So Prometheus comes in the picture. So we want to see able to see CPU utilization on these servers, the memory consumption, monitor the process, identify what process is causing higher consumption, etc. That's where looks like Prometheus in our mind. So Prometheus it collects the information or matrices from the different server and stores it centrally. तो Prometheus, ओके, ये Prometheus है। तो क्या करता है प्रोफेसर? इट कलेक्ट द इंफॉर्मेशन और मैट्रिसेस। कलेक्ट इंफॉर्मेशन and matrices from the different server and stores it centrally. So now not only do we want to collect matrices, we also want to be able to visualize them graphically, and that's where tools like Grafana. So Grafana क्या करता है? ये Grafana है। So Grafana helps make sense out of the data collected by Prometheus by visualizing it into the charts and graphs. This cycle repeats. So जो हम कलेक्ट करते हैं मेट्राइसेस, सो हमको उसको एबल टू विजुअलाइज देम ग्राफिकली, एंड दैट्स वेयर टूल्स लाइक ग्राफाना यूज होता है। इट हेल्प्स मेक सेंस ऑफ द आउट ऑफ द डेटा कलेक्टेड बाय प्रोमेथस बाय विजुअलाइजिंग इनटू द चार्ट्स एंड ग्राफ्स द साइकिल रिपीट्स। तो इसका मतलब क्या है? प्रोमेथस जो हमें डेटा देता है, उससे हम विजुअलाइज करके चार्ट्स एंड ग्राफ्स बनाते हैं। तो इसका यूज क्या है? विजुअलाइजिंग, विजुअलाइजिंग इट इनटू चार्ट्स एंड ग्राफ्स। किसका? जो हमें प्रोमेथस डेटा देता है। इधर, so this cycles repeats. So this is all overview of the docker भी देखा हमने, ये docker है। so this is the DevOps और इसके tools जो हमने अच्छे से देखे। फॉर एग्जांपल ये main.tf फाइल है फॉर Terraform, दिस इज Ansible फाइल, ये भी हमने डीपली एक्सप्लेन देखा इसका. So DevOps is a combination of people and processes and tools that work together in going from an idea to execution and delivering high quality software consistently. This is the main motto for DevOps. तो इसमें होते हैं प्लानिंग टूल्स लाइक प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट जीरा, जो टास्क मैनेजमेंट एंड स्प्रिंट प्लानिंग यूज इन ऑलमोस्ट एवरी आईटी कंपनी like Jira. The second is Confluence. It is a documentation tool. You store the technical documents, architectural diagram. Then source code management, version control. like हमने Git देखा, ये वाला. तो इसका मतलब क्या है? It is the tracks change in a code, supports collaboration. Every DevOps engineer must know Git. ये हम डीपली डीपली देखेंगे. जो हम GitHub और Git के बारे में पढ़ेंगे. Git क्या है, GitHub क्या है, Bitbucket क्या है, GitLab क्या है. ओके. तो GitHub क्या है? It platform that hosts repositories, Git repositories. It also provides the CI/CD pipeline. So third is the build tools like Maven, Gradle. So Maven is used for Java projects, build the application into jar or file. Example Spring Boot application build. Gradle, faster modern build tool. It support the multiple languages. CI tools like Jenkins देखा हमने, डीपली देखेंगे सब. जेनकिंस, तो जेनकिंस का यूज क्या है? It used for the continuous integration. It's the most popular tool. It automates the building, testing, packaging, creates the pipeline, highly customizable. Then GitHub Action आता है in play, जो CI/CD directly inside GitHub. It very easy for beginners. GitLab CI. It integrated CI/CD platform used by many companies. तो some artifactory repository भी आती है. Nexus, JFrog Artifactory. Store build output jar, Docker images, binaries. It acts as a central storage for deployments. और जो कि डॉकर डॉकर टूल, इट्स यूज फॉर द कंटेनराइजेशन टूल. ये किसमें आता है? कंटेनराइजेशन टूल में. कंटेनराइजेशन टूल जो कि हम पैकेज एप्लीकेशन प्लस डिपेंडेंसीज ऐड करते हैं. रन्स एनीवेयर, लैपटॉप, सर्वर, क्लाउड. मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट मॉडर्न डेवऑप्स टूल. इट इज अ मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट मॉडर्न डेवऑप्स टूल जो कि डॉकर है. ये भी हम डिटेल में देखेंगे. और पॉडमैन भी उसमें कंटेनराइजेशन टूल में आता है. इट अल्टरनेटिव टू डॉकर. It's the daemonless, also known as daemonless. Then third is a container orchestration tool. That is the Kubernetes. Here it is, this one. So Kubernetes क्या है? It manage the container in large scale, auto scaling, load balancing, healing. It's standard in DevOps industry. For example, Kubernetes का ले सकते हैं हम. Deploy the 100 containers. Kubernetes manage everything automatically. ओके. जो कि क्लाउड में आता है AKS, EKS, JKE, जो कि Kubernetes services by Azure, AWS, GCP है. ओके. देन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एज अ कोड. टेराफॉर्म. टेराफॉर्म क्या है? इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एज अ कोड. इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एज अ कोड, सिंपली हम इसको आयक भी कल बोलते हैं. Terraform. It creates the cloud resources using code, works with the AWS, Azure, GCP. It is the most important IAC tool जो कि हमने देखा एग्जांपल main.tf. This one. Then AWS CloudFormation IAC tool specifically for AWS, जो कि AWS में यूज होता है AWS CloudFormation. जब हम AWS पढ़ेंगे तो इस उसमें डिटेल्स देखेंगे हम how it works. So next is the configuration management tool. This is Ansible. This one, configure management tool, configuration management tool. आप बोलते होंगे टेराफॉर्म भी कॉन्फ़िगरेशन बोलते हो, प्रोविजनिंग बोलते हो. तो उसमें डिफरेंस है, बट स्पेसिफिक एरियाज में वो डिफरेंट है. तो इंटरव्यूअर पूछेंगे व्हाट इज डिफरेंस बिटवीन टेराफॉर्म एंड एंसिबल, तो आपको बताना आना चाहिए. So Terraform is used mostly for provisioning and provisioning infrastructure, and Ansible is used for post configuration activities like such as installing the software, configuring them on the servers. It is similar to Terraform, but Ansible uses the code to configure servers, so it's called Ansible playbook file. तो हमने देखी. So this code also goes to the source code and repo on the GitHub. तो ये आंसर है उसका. ओके. तो Ansible में it automates server configuration and setup. Agentless uses SSH only. It's super easy to learn. Like Shape Puppet, it is older tools still used in the some companies like Shape Puppet. इसका example install packages on 50 servers with one playbook, जो कि one playbook में हम इसका मैनेजमेंट कॉन्फ़िगर करेंगे 50 सर्वर्स का, और प्लेबुक डॉट यामल फाइल से रन करेंगे. तो नेक्स्ट इज अ मॉनिटरिंग एंड ऑब्जर्वेबिलिटी टूल्स, लाइक हमने जो देखा प्रोमेथस, ग्राफाना, जो कि है उसमें क्या है. Prometheus, it collect the matrices from server and apps, is used with the Kubernetes heavily, and Grafana may visualize the matrices as the dashboards, alerts and graphs for the monitoring. इसका example CPU uses alert, Grafana displays, DevOps team fix the issue. This is the simple example. And next is the cloud platforms AWS, Azure, GCP. ये तो हमने देखा ही है पिछले वाली वीडियो में. So how to connect all tools in real life, जो कि डेवलपर राइट्स द कोड, तो गिटहब आता है उसमें. दिस वन. देन merge the request code reviewed, then Jenkins pipeline triggers like build Maven, Docker image created, stored in Nexus, Terraform create the infrastructure, and Kubernetes deploy the Docker image. Then Prometheus monitor Grafana dashboards, alerts sent on Slack teams. This is how complete DevOps workflow looks. Okay, this one. तो कंक्लूजन लास्ट में क्या आता है. ऑल द टूल्स इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इन डेवऑप्स. तो हर टूल का अलग महत्व है, अलग पहचान है. सो गाइस, दिस वाज अ कंप्लीट ओवरव्यू डेवऑप्स टूल्स. आपको अब आइडिया हो गया होगा कि डेवऑप्स इंजीनियर्स किन किन टूल्स का यूज करते हैं. तो थैंक यू. मिलते हैं नेक्स्ट वीडियो में. बाय.